talk about the macroeconomics. They too impact us in some form or the other. Supir Gokarn, Director of Research at Brookings India and former Deputy Governor at the RBI as well, joins in. Mr. Gokarn, hi, morning. The recent core data has been quite disappointing. The Q3 GDP fell short of expectations. Would you say the worst is not over for India? And by when do you expect things to start improving?
Whether the worst is over or not is a difficult judgment to make. I think we have found some sort of bottom, and in the absence of any significant shock, which is what might make it worse. I think we are likely to be growing at this pace, give or take a few basis points for some time. What's going to make a difference is essentially, I think, a decisive set of policy actions. In the absence of those actions, as we're seeing, we have a relatively healthy investment rate. For the 9 months ended December, investment, that is fixed capital formation, was 32.4% of GDP. Now, under normal circumstances, you would expect that number to generate a growth rate of at least about 7, if not higher. But we're getting less than 5. So that would suggest that there is a basic imbalance in the economy, that capacities across sectors are not in sync, are not matched up. So we are using our capital very inefficiently, and to me that is the crux of the problem. So how are we going to get capital to be used more efficiently? We need strategic investments to be made in certain areas. We need bottlenecks to be cleared. We need stuck projects to be reactivated. We need more coal to be fueling all the power plants that we've built, which are now struggling because there isn't any coal. All of these imbalances need to be corrected, and I think those are basically going to happen if there are decisive policy actions. So I think that's really what's going to get us out of this. I don't see a self-correcting process at work in the economy at all.
Mr. Gokarn, good morning. Nikunj Dharma also joining in. So, how do you reckon the CAD number? Do you think CAD problem could haunt us again?
I think for the time being, they are relatively in the background. We've obviously had a lot of success in compressing the deficit, partly because of the constraints on gold imports, but also because the lower rupee, the cheaper rupee, has actually helped exports to recover somewhat and has compressed imports. But the real cause of the CAD problem in the last 2 or 3 years, gold has been around for some time, maybe 5 or 6, but the reduction in iron ore exports and the increase in coal imports, those are the 2 big contributors to the sudden explosion in the CAD in the last 2 years. And unless we address those, we're always going to be under some sort of pressure on the CAD front.
So what's your view on FY15 GDP, and do you think that FY15 GDP will also be largely dependent on agri and export growth, as industry and services growth will depend on, election as well as the political outcome?
I think the number is going to be almost entirely contingent on the election outcome. Because, as I said, I don't expect to see any change in momentum in the next few months till there is a clear policy direction. And so the first quarter essentially goes away at roughly the same rate. So then what happens in the elections and what sort of direction the new government gives the economy will determine the performance over the next 2 or 3 quarters. So I don't really have a view at this point on what the GDP is going to for 14-15 is going to be, because I think it entirely depends on the election outcome at this point.
Mr. Gokarn, what is the impact of US dollar on emerging market currencies, and how do you see rupee within the Asian and emerging market basket moving?
I think for the time being, as I said in response to the question on the current account, that given that we've narrowed it considerably, the rupee is certainly less vulnerable to less vulnerable in today's situation compared to what it was 6-8 months ago. The US trajectory is now known. It may deviate a little bit, but bottom line in the US is that they will continue with the withdrawal of liquidity at some pace. Markets have, I think, by and large factored that in, and the vulnerability of individual countries or individual currencies to this process is really a function of of the current account deficit. That's the immediate provocation. So we're slightly better off, somewhat better off now than we were in May when the first shock hit us.
So how do you see India yields in the light of, US yields, impact on debt flows on India, and overall, to sum up, how do you see both equity and debt flows coming into our markets?
I think equity flows will depend largely on the revival of growth. So obviously, they haven't been too bad in the last few months, and to the extent that this is based on an expectation that the government will actually put some policy reforms in place, get the growth momentum moving again. If that does happen, I think equity flows should be relatively comfortable. Debt flows are obviously driven by interest rate arbitrage, and that remains high given that we have a relatively tight monetary stance right now. And as the differential between the US and Indian interest rates narrows, the currency expectation, the expectation of rupee movement is going to be a key factor. I think we have some stability there now, some expectation of stability in the range that we're in now. So I don't see any particularly negative impact on debt flows, given that we're operating with certain limits and so on. I don't expect there to be too much of a deviation from the current pattern.
Mr. Gokan, appreciate your time and thank you for joining us. What do we do next? Well, you guessed it right. We got to revisit Tata Group stocks. That's the only game in the town, like we've been mentioning.